Hello, this is Scott from telecoms.com here at NetworkX 2025, and I'm delighted to be speaking to my colleague Kerem from Omdia.
Hi.
So I understand one of the things you're focusing on, I'm talking to a few of your colleagues here, our colleagues, but one of the things you're focused on at the show is AI at the edge in this telecoms context. Can you tell us a bit more about what you're hearing there?
Sure, yeah. So first of all, I think one of the things that I want to mention is that edge has been an area of opportunity for telecom operators for a while, but it hasn't really flourished because there were questions about demand, there were obsessions with things like killer use cases, why am I doing it, for whom am I doing it? So those were all like relevant questions, but at the same time there were limitations as to what can be done. Now with AI, monetization again became a topic of interest, and basically my job is to look around, talk to people and try to understand where all of this is evolving towards.
Well, because as you say, edge computing has been a topic in telecoms certainly for quite a while as far as I'm concerned, and for people who aren't too familiar with it, it's about having computing resources sort of roundabout base stations at the edge of the network.
Well, so base stations is a bit of a caricaturization, right? I mean, that's how it's seen because it basically emphasizes the opportunity a little bit more, both for the vendors and for the telcos. Exactly, and you got thousands of them. What an opportunity, right? Whereas actually people quickly realize that that's not really what it's about. But it's actually more about just bringing computing closer wherever it matters, right? So I think with AI, we're now seeing a bit of a realization of what exactly can be done, and that doesn't necessarily mean going to the base station or not even in like centralized RAN environments. Even there, it's a challenge. But we're now looking at AI data centers that are being built by telcos, or some of the edge infrastructures, for instance, being rented out to cloud players like these new neoscalers, for instance, that can come and deploy their equipment to run GPU as a service, for instance. It's unclear whether it's going to be the computing resources of the telcos themselves or whether it's going to be the computing resources of other players like the ones I mentioned now, like those neoscalers or hyperscalers. But that is basically the gist of the opportunity.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, it's all about finding out where these concrete sort of commercial opportunities are. There's a lot of potential. There's a lot of hype around having more sort of compute at the edge. How do you think we are? Like, I don't know if we want to think of it as a hype cycle or whatever, but how far along do you think we are towards actually realizing this as a commercial reality?
So commercial reality, in my opinion, when it comes to these AI data centers, etc., it's not that far. When it comes to bringing on, neoscalers onto your infrastructures, we're not that far. I think what we are further away from is definitely the initial example that you gave about these cell sites, because there are these chipset manufacturers who are interested in deploying those expensive chipsets all across the RAN
for the obvious reason.
For the obvious reason, but that I don't think is going to happen in the next few years, with a few exceptions of maybe some of the operators are trialing more aggressively. There are trials in Japan, a little bit in the US, but especially in countries like the European markets, for instance, where RAN is very distributed, there are no centralized nodes where you can take advantage of scale. That sort of thing is not going to be easy to achieve. The size of the pie, though, is even though you can put a number on the size of the pie, it's very difficult to assess what percentage of that pie is going to be captured by the telcos themselves.
Exactly.
That's the thing, right? Because otherwise it just makes perfect sense to have closer computing, better network connectivity. So it's like the best of both worlds when it comes to on-prem computing and public cloud. So it's like, why not there? But are telcos capable of delivering those services? Until now, we have seen no strong evidence that they can, but partnerships will be key.
Yes, I think that rings true, and that's a good place to end it. I mean, my last thoughts are, obviously the telecoms sector has a rich history of missing out on quite a lot of revenues that the more IT side of things have capitalized on, and I think you're right. It's not a core competence of theirs, so partners are crucial.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott.